Welcome back to Tracy Take Tuesday. My name's Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and it is Tuesday, which means we have another mock draft for you. We'll be doing a mock draft on every Tuesday from here to the Tuesday right before the 2025 NFL draft. So if you like mock draft content, be sure to subscribe to the Tracy Take, tackle that bell to get notified when new videos come out, and leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you think of my selections. It's going to be my time doing the draft. This week is going to be my third one of the year so far. Really looking forward to it. This draft is going to be absolutely wild, and we're gonna get into it here in a second. But before we do that, we want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. We hope that you all have a phenomenal Christmas Eve and an even better Christmas on Wednesday. So I really hope that you all enjoy the time with your friends and family, especially too during an amazing football season. So Ryan, let's get into it here.
Let's do it.
Let's pull up PFF, and so crazy changes going on the board. I'd say the biggest winners actually probably from Week 16 were your New England Patriots. We're going to get to that here in a second. One quick thing, just point a note. We are not doing trade. I'm not doing trades. Ryan, when he does it, sometimes we rotate every week. He'll do trades. I'm going to not do trades until the first 18 are set. So actually until essentially the end of the season. So my next mock draft will start to include trades, just as a heads up here. But we're going to get to your Patriots here in a second. With the Giants picking first overall on the board, this pick doesn't really change overall. They were going to go quarterback when they were number two, when they were picking second. I'm going to go with Shedeur Sanders. He's my number one overall pick. I think he's just more polished of the quarterbacks. I think Cam Ward is toolsy, but I think there's also some decision-making and areas that could be some cause for concern as well. I think Shedeur Sanders. I think also, too, and I think just a little point of note, I think with his family being in the spotlight as well, I think that's something he can go into this New York crowd, and I think that he could handle the media and the pressure. I think a little bit different than some other rookie quarterbacks might be. He's already been in the limelight for the past couple of years because of college, but also too growing up with it with his dad. Maybe I'm overlooking that, but I think maybe just another point why I think he might be handled might handle this a little bit better than some other quarterbacks would.
So, yeah, I also think, sorry, not to interrupt after the first pick, but you look at other former NFL players' kids that have come into the NFL. I maybe it's just anecdotal because those stories are covered more, but I feel like there is a higher success rate just because they have that familiarity with like what it's like to be an NFL player. It's not as much of a culture shock for them. And I definitely agree too. Him being in the limelight, the New York media can be really tough. And so I feel like that could be something that is a deciding factor for them when deciding between him and Cam Ward.
Yeah. I also think, too, as well, I think he'd work well in a Brian Daboll system as well. I think he's very consistent. I think he goes through his reads. He might not have, max out 100 and on Madden arm strength. I think he's pretty accurate. And I think he can read the field well, go through his progressions. And I think him and Malik Neighbors would have a good time. So moving on to your Patriots. This will be definitely a big point of conversation if this is where the Patriots end up picking, because what do they do with the number 2 overall pick, especially if Travis Hunter is still there. I'm picking Travis Hunter in this mock draft in general. I also think there's a serious argument that the Patriots don't trade back because I think Travis Hunter's that good. Just his ball skills. I think even if he does come in as a cornerback, you put him alongside Christian Gonzalez, and you guys would have the best secondary already. I think you can provide a lot more pressure. And one thing we saw today with yesterday with New England playing against Buffalo, it kind of took Buffalo by surprise a little bit, the amount of pressure that they were sending, because they were kind of doing this, I don't say all-out blitz, but definitely sending more guys than I feel like they normally do. And Christian Gonzalez and that secondary did a really good job with their matchups. And so imagine then, too, Travis Hunter being across from Christian Gonzalez. I think you could send that much more pressure, a Brian Flores-style type defense. I also think as well, too, and just an overarching thing, you just need to increase the talent on that Patriots team, and he's the best player in this draft, if we're being completely honest. And so I think you just raise the ceiling of talented players on that team.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, for me, Travis Hunter is the best player in this class, and that would be hard to pass up at 2. If you get a haul, let's say the Raiders are offering you the 6th pick, their second round pick, and a future first, then I think you'd have to heavily consider it. But again, Travis Hunter is still my top prospect in this draft. He's probably the best receiver in this class. I think him and Ted McMillan are really close to each other. And then what he can do on the defensive side of the ball is phenomenal. He's he's a really good receiver. Don't get me wrong. He's a much better corner than he is a receiver in my eyes.
Yeah.
And so I think him and Christian Gonzalez, that would free up this defense. I also think it frees them up in later rounds to go after, like in the second round, you can go get Jack Nelson, Josh Connerly, and then maybe like get a Caden Prather, Ty Felton, Jaden Higgins in round 3 to help solidify that wide receiver core, or an edge rusher that falls. This is a really deep edge class.
Absolutely. When we do our 3-round mock drafts and 7-round mock drafts, the Patriots ones is going to be a lot of fun. So be sure to subscribe and tackle that bell so you can see when those videos come out come January and February. So going to the Jacksonville Jaguars here, I've gone a lot of I thought about going a lot of different routes with this team. The Jags, I've had them go Mason Graham in my last one, and then actually Travis Hunter because they picked first overall. So I've gone defensive line, and I've gone secondary for them. So I'm going to mix it up here. I'm actually going to go with Will Campbell here. They just need offensive line help in general. And so whether Will Campbell will be a tackle or will kick into guard, I think he's just probably the best healthy tackle in this class. He might be the best tackle in this class. I say healthy because I'll get to a guy who I really like coming up here in a second. And so, but I think you just protect Trevor Lawrence, just increase that offensive line. Walker Little's been battling injuries this year. Anton Harrison is going into rookie year, and he's improving, but he's a rookie tackle in the NFL. Traded away Cam Robinson, so offensive line is such a huge need for this team. Wouldn't be surprised if they spend multiple picks on offensive line here. Sticking in the AFC South, going to go for the Tennessee Titans. Going to go with Cam Ward here. They've benched Will Levis. And Mason Rudolph is perennial backup for a reason. And the way that this has been formatted and set up, I think that they take a shot here with Cam Ward because this Brian Callahan and this new Tennessee Titans regime doesn't have any allegiance to Will Levis. And Will Levis has showed some good things over the past several weeks, but also he's shown a lot of reasons why he's not the guy or maybe needs more development. And Tennessee, I think, they got a new regime. They got brought in to build their version of the Tennessee Titans. And the way that this is set up here with no trades, Cam Ward's being there, it just makes too much sense. I think another route they could go could be Ted McMillan. Maybe they could also go, if Will Campbell falls, maybe they go there and keep addressing that offensive line. But quarterback's the most important position, and I think you go get a guy like Cam Ward who's going to need time to develop, so maybe there is kind of a quarterback battle still, and maybe that can raise the level of Will Levis. Maybe that will raise the level of Cam Ward. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. But I think that fit would make sense. So last pick here before I kind of throw it back to you. Just want to get your thoughts on these last couple picks. But Cleveland Browns here, they missed out on the top 2 quarterbacks, and those are going to be the only 2 quarterbacks taken in this first round. You can maybe make an argument a quarterback could be taken late first on someone that they could develop, like Jalen Milroe, for example. You did that with Seattle Seahawks. I thought that was very intriguing. So something to think about. But here, Cleveland Browns, they need some more weapons. Elijah Moore is going to be a free agent as well. And they're going to be over the cap. So I think pretty significantly come that time. So they're going to have to make some tough moves and let some guys walk. I think Ted McMillan's sitting here, being a top wide receiver. I think he'd actually go very well with Jerry Jeudy and his speed. And then you can have David Njoku as well, who's, I think, an underrated tight end in the league. I think that's several good receiving options for this team. Could maybe be an Ashton Genty spot here as well with Nick Chubb, who's also on free agency, I believe. No, he's not a free agent, but he is a free agent. Sorry. So a couple different routes they could go here. I think Ted McMillan is just the one that they're going to go.
Okay.
So yeah. I don't know. So for number 6 here, going with the Las Vegas Raiders, this is actually where I do have Ashton Genty coming off the board. Raiders won, and the only people that were upset about it was their entire fan base with the victory. So that bumped them back several spots here. So they're going to miss out on some of the top quarterbacks. And that whole thing always cracks me up just because the players, like, obviously they're competitive. They want to win. But it's so weird that these fans are going to these home games and rooting for their team to lose. I get why they're doing it, but I also get why the players want to win. So I've just always found that funny. And they have a very winnable game this upcoming week in week 17 going up against the Saints. So they could
So I can't say anything because I was rooting for the Patriots last year to lose to be in the top 3 to get one of those quarterbacks. But I think you look at this class, and it's like it doesn't matter to me if I'm picking 2nd or 8th in this class. Like it's just not that great of a class as a whole. So for me, I think that is a little stupid in this one, but we'll see. I mean, I know you want to get up there for those quarterbacks. I definitely think you'll be able to trade up there if you really want to. And I like the McMillan pick there for the Browns. I think with a weaker offensive line, they're going to have to probably spread teams out a little bit more. And I think with Jerry Jeudy, that's kind of your big play guy. And then with Tet, you can have more of your like true possession receiver. Tet is also a big play receiver, but he reminds me of like that Drake London, Michael Pittman Jr., where he's going to be the oversized possession receiver.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think a similar route then too as well for why the Raiders will go with Ashton Genty is just a stud player at that position, best player at that position. Alexander Madison and Amir Abdul are both going to be free agents, and they just need to upgrade it at the running back position in general. They could go a lot of different routes as well, but they actually have a decent defensive line when healthy. I don't really think they need that edge rusher. That being said, though, Tyree Wilson. Is it Tyree Wilson or Tyree Wilson? Who is it?
Tyree Wilson.
Tyree Wilson hasn't done much in the NFL this entire time.
He's flashed a little bit this year, but he's in his this is his 2nd year?
Yeah. Second year. So Carolina Panthers here picking at number 7. I believe I have gone Mason Graham. Now they're going to Travis Hunter, and then I've had them go Mason Graham before as well. So I'm trying to mix it up a little bit. Mason Graham, I think, would be an absolute great pick here for them in general. I ended up not going that route just to try and mix things up on some other scenarios because I also think, too, just in general, they just need just better defensive talent on that defensive line. And Mason Graham would be a great run stuffer, but if they also want to get a great pass rush guy, Abdul Carter, I think it's going to be a lot of fun watching him in the playoffs. I think it's going to be a lot of fun watching him now going up against that Boise State offensive line, going up against Ashton Genty. We're really going to find out how good he can be on setting the edge on the run game as well, going up against the guy who was picked right before him. So we're going with Abdul Carter here. I don't think that's a wrong pick for the Panthers. Mason Graham, they could go Will Johnson. They could go Malik Starks. They could maybe get another playmaker like Luther Burden, who we see there. A lot of different routes that they could go. This is where I do have Mason Graham coming off the board. I think offensive line could potentially be an option. But that being said, though, Olu has been playing well. Unfortunately, it looks like he broke his foot in the Week 16 game against the Rams. But I think, again, Mason Graham here, put him alongside Quinnen Williams. Just absolutely have a stud defensive interior, and they're actually getting pretty good on they're good on the edge as well with Jermaine Johnson's been playing well. And then who's the other guy? I'm blanking.
Jermaine Johnson, he's been hurt this year.
Who's the guy I'm thinking? Will McDonald is the guy who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, because they have a good defensive line, but I think them pairing him up with Quinnen Williams would be great. DJ Reed is also a free agent, so they could go Will Johnson here. That would be a very unique combination as well. You lose DJ Reed, but you bring in Will Johnson. I think that could be a good kind of swap out, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. Sitting here, number 9. So this is going to be the offensive lineman who I mentioned earlier that I think would be my number 1 if he was healthy. I've done this pick before for the Bears, and it just makes sense. Josh Simmons, you go see his tape before he got injured, and the dude is just an athletic freak. And when you have Caleb Williams as your quarterback who likes to improvise, roll out of the pocket, I think you need a guy that is super mobile. And it's going to be interesting to see how Josh Simmons, if he's able to test, just coming back from the knee injury, because I think he can be that guy that can be very effective in the run game, but also in the pass blocking game as well, giving Caleb Williams more time. And Caleb Williams hasn't played well. The Chicago Bears organization hasn't done anything well this year, ever since Tyreek Stevenson was dancing in the end zone before the final play of the Commanders game. And so I think you go get this guy here. You can put him in as your left tackle. Braxton Jones also got hurt as well. And so at minimum, it's going to be some depth. Maybe you can allow him some time to heal, then he can come into that spot. Maybe he can kick inside a little bit. Maybe Braxton Jones can kick inside. A lot of options I think that this Bears offensive line can do, but just getting better talent for that team is going to be the most important part. So
yeah, this one, Josh Simmons. So he tore his patellar tendon, which connects your kneecap to your tibia, and so he is apparently supposed to be ready by the start of training camp. He will not be able to test this offseason, though. So
okay,
that's my big concern with him is that's just a major knee injury, and so like you will not be able to know if he's the same athlete until after he's in your organization.
Yeah. If you're a team with like, we'll have to see what it's like and see how everybody tests. But if you're a team with like multiple second round picks, I would absolutely like take a flyer on this guy if he does fall that far.
Yeah.
As of right now, though, too, like if he is good to go and like if he is that guy, I can see the Bears taking him. But also too, the way the Bears have drafted and GM moves that they've made, maybe they can take him here even if he's not ready to go.
Where are the
I'm just making.
They do have multiple seconds.
So
39 and 41. So that would make sense.
So maybe you could take a flyer on him. So sitting here for the Saints pick, and full transparency, we are currently recording this during the Saints game. But they are currently down 24-0. So I'm going to guess they're not going to win that game. But also, too, if we were reading Tankathon correctly, there's not going to be any movement whether they win or lose, most likely lose now. So they're going to be picking at that 10th overall spot here when you're watching this video tomorrow, unless they have a miraculous comeback and we just read Tankathon wrong. And it's very possible. I'm pretty stupid. So I digress. But here, though, I think for the Saints, they've just been battling so many injuries, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And I think the trenches has been something they need to work on just in general. And so Nick Scorton here, I think he's just a huge defensive edge rusher that I think could cause a lot of fits for these O-lines for teams in the NFC South. The Bucs offensive line is getting better. The Falcons offensive line is mid. There's some good pieces, but definitely some pieces that are vulnerable that I think a guy like with Nick Scorton's size and skill set could exploit. And Panthers offensive line right now is good, not great, but I think that they can be improving. So you're going to want to have some youthfulness to go up against this team because they have Chuba Hubbard. Oh, you're also going to be going up against Bijan Robinson and Bucky Irving as well for the Buccaneers has been playing well. So you're going to need this big edge rusher that can set the edge and can also get after the quarterback. I think Nick Scorton can be that guy for the Saints. Sitting here at number 11, the 49ers. A lot of different routes the 49ers can go. This has absolutely been not the season that they've been hoping for. They've been battling a bunch of injuries, to be totally fair to them. I thought about offensive line guys here, but I think another kind of maybe unknown area for the 49ers, I feel like there's also been a detriment to them as well. And as I said, they've been battling some injuries. I feel like that front seven hasn't been nearly as effective as what it's been in the past when they've made these Super Bowl runs. Like Nick Bosa has been battling some injuries over the past couple of weeks, but he's still having a good season. But they've lost a lot of the guys from last year when they made the Super Bowl, tried to replace them. They're doing fine, but it's a clear noticeable difference, I think, on like their pressure to the quarterback. And so to me, this is where I think a guy like Jalen Walker could really come into play. He's played half his snaps on the edge. He's played half his snaps in the box. They have him as a linebacker. He's really, I think, more of an edge rusher. But I think with that skill set, I think he can be very versatile on this defensive line. And you see him, you watch his film, he does a lot of stunts. He can like let the defensive linemen like make holes, and he can run up the middle and like pressure the quarterback or stop the run play. And I think pairing him up with Nick Bosa, then you have Fred Warner in the backfield as well. I think he'd just be a great complement to this defensive front seven. Get this 49ers defense back to kind of what it was, like the stout, like front seven that is hard to go up against with both the run game and can also provide a lot of pressure on you. I think he'd be a great complement to those guys. So I don't know. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, he's a little small, I think, to be an edge rusher consistently. But as a blitzing linebacker, I think that's a really good pick. You can put him next to Fred Warner. That defense has been really banged up, but he's a great athlete, a true Georgia defender, and I think he's pretty scheme averse.
Well, and that's kind of my thing is I feel like Nick Bosa brings so much attention. Fred Warner brings so much attention. I think a guy like that who is just super explosive and athletic, I think could thrive next to those guys. So
I also would like to see them maybe go with like a Kelvin Banks Jr. I know they just drafted Ricky Pearsall, but I have a feeling that Deebo Samuel is going to be a cap cut. So Luther Burden, who can kind of be in that same high-end gadget player role, I think would be another sneaky good fit there. And then Travarius Ward, if Will Johnson's still on the board, Travarius Ward is most likely going to leave in free agency. And so Will Johnson could be another one. They really could go a ton of different routes.
Yeah. No. That's what's going to be so fun about this draft. And I'll say it again probably at the end of this. But it's like I thought about all these guys over these next 10 picks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they could go here. They could go here. I could make an argument for why this team could go. And speaking of the guy that you just mentioned, Will Johnson, I have him going here as well. I think this is going to be an area where Miami is going to want to get a little bit younger. Jalen Ramsey's still playing well, but he is getting older. Javon Holland is going to be a free agent. Jordan Poyer hasn't been playing nearly as well as he would like and that Miami would like. So we'll have to kind of wait and see. I think a guy like Will Johnson falling here, helping out with that secondary, especially too with the way the team's set up still. Like they're going to be some high-scoring games, so they're going to need some effective corners to try and lock down some of these offenses when it gets into very explosive, pass-heavy type game. So I think a guy like Will Johnson can do that. Other guys I thought maybe going edge or defensive line because Calais Campbell's getting a little bit older. Chop Robinson's been playing well, but they've lost some production on the other side. But I thought they still have Bradley Chubb, still have Jalen Phillips. Both those guys have been out for vast majority of the season, if not all season. And so I think when those guys come back, I think that defensive line is going to get better as they get healthier. So I went secondary on this one. Offensive line could be another one as well. I thought about Kelvin Banks also there too. Let's quickly go to Indianapolis though before you jump in. Indianapolis here, their defensive line I think is solid. They provide some good pass rush, but where they currently rank right now in the running game is what kind of makes me go with my pick. They are averaging 136.53 yards per game, ranking them 29th overall. And the thing for me is I just don't think they have that big, meaty guy up front that can also provide some good pass pressure as well. And to me, I think if you put Kenneth Grant on this defensive line and you're going to have DeForest Buckner, then you're going to have Kwity Paye, you're going to have a lot of other speedy guys, Leatu Latu, who they drafted last year as well. I think he would be a great complement to this team because he's done really well with Michigan. Him and Mason Graham were honestly the two best, like the only best good things coming out of this Michigan team this year. Colston Loveland was also really good too, but he was the reason why Michigan was close with Indiana. Him and Mason Graham were one of the reasons why Michigan beat Ohio State. So I think you plug him in here. I think he's going to help out the run defense immediately, but he also has a lot of good pass rushing capabilities as well. So I think it's going to help out this Colts defense a lot. And another reason too, I thought they could go corner, but and that's something that they will actually address. Malik Starks there, like maybe they could go safety. But if you look at PFF, I know PFF isn't the end all be all of like how good players are. Those guys actually don't grade horribly. I think they just need to get a little bit better in the rushing department to maybe make this defense a little bit more balanced so they can have some good pass rushing. More pass rushing opportunities instead of being down. So, and if Benjamin Morrison declares, that could be a guy that they go after as well. A lot of different routes I think this Colts team could go.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fit. That's one I've done in mocks before. He is a little bit more of like a true nose tackle, like he's going to line up over the center or in that A gap. But I think they could definitely find ways to work him in next to DeForest Buckner because he is athletic enough, I think, on early downs to have – or on third down to have some pass rush upside.
Yeah.
But he is going to be more of like an early down defensive tackle. But I mean, I like that pick. I like the Will Johnson pick. I think that'd be a good fit. That offensive line has been performing better since Tua has been back in after his concussion this season.
Yeah.
And so like that might not be as pressing of a need for them. And I think they can definitely invest on the interior later on in this draft.
Yeah. Absolutely. So moving on to Cincinnati, another team that is struggling in the secondary and on the defensive side of the ball. And so this to me here, I was initially thinking secondary, trying to see like where they'd want to go. And if my notes are correct here, Von Bell is going to be a free agent. Geno Stone and Jordan Battle are guys that they've drafted, but don't know if maybe they could want to just keep getting better at that position. And to me, Malik Starks, I think he's just too good a talent.
It's Malachi Starks. It is not Malik Starks.
Malachi Starks. My bad. Malachi Starks. His brother Malik, he wasn't good enough to get drafted this year. But Malachi Starks, he's a stud. I think he's just a good talent overall. And I think you put him back in that room. Maybe he falls a little bit because he's a safety. But once again, though, too. Now, otherwise, they could go for the secondary. Benjamin Morrison, as you saw. Jahdae Barron was a guy that I thought about. Siobhan Ravel. Was another guy, but I ended up going with kind of best player on the board and going Malachi Starks here. So with the Dallas Cowboys, bunch of different routes they could go. A lot of people are mocking Ashley Genty to go to him. And then we've even had, if Ashley Genty's not there, Omar Hampton goes there. I also thought, too, about another weapon, Luther Burden. But honestly, with Devontae Turpin that's there, and this offense actually looked decent with Cooper Rush running it. And they have some explosive guys there. And I think one of the issues that they really need to work on is just going to be in the trenches, just in general. And a guy that I've been impressed with on film, and you saw him at least in the first quarter, and I think majority of the second quarter, I kind of stopped watching the Tennessee-Ohio State game in the second half because it just kind of got into a blowout. But it felt like they were saying Tyleik Williams' name over and over and over again, getting after the quarterback, just constantly blowing up plays. When I've watched this film, if he's not being double-teamed in one-on-one situations, it feels like to me, correct me if I'm wrong, this is what I was telling you, it feels like at minimum it's a draw. Like he doesn't get blown off the ball nearly that much. And he's got a good run grade. I think he can get back in the backfield and provide some pressures and some quarterbacks. He's got several quarterback sacks this year. I think you put him in the middle there, and if he allows for more double teams, it might be more one-on-one opportunities for Micah Parsons or some other guys as well. So I think he'd be a good fit in Dallas. They could go so many other different routes. I thought about cornerback here as well with Jahdae Barron, keeping him in Texas. So last one here, and then I'll take a quick break and allow you to go over these last couple picks. But Arizona Cardinals, very similar, I think, to the previous couple of teams in front of us. Just kind of anything defense, I think, could be a good option to go. And ended up going with Derek Harmon, a guy that has provided a lot of hurries, guy that he's got a big matchup here going up against actually Ohio State. He won't be matching up against Derek Harmon. That would be a crazy matchup to see those guys line up against one another. But it's going to be really interesting to see how Derek Harmon does against Ohio State, especially, too, like we just saw Omar Norman-Lott go up against Ohio State, and he was – well, that entire Tennessee defense was unproductive in general. Also saw James Pierce Jr. as well. So just kind of one of those litmus test things. And we've seen Derek Harmon have a great year at Oregon. I think he's going to be a riser in this draft as well. That's why I'm taking him here at 16. I think you plug him into this Arizona Cardinals defensive line, and I think he'd be a great complement to what they have and kind of what they're building, like even when they got Darius Robinson last year. I think just a good, young, talented guy for the Jonathan Gannon defense.
Yeah, I don't necessarily like that pick as much. You're much higher on Derek Harmon than I am. I also don't necessarily love the scheme fit there. I think they either want like a Tyleik Williams or a Deion Walker or like a big nose tackle, or the slightly undersized, more athletic, like a Shamar Stewart type of defensive tackle where he's more of an oversized edge rusher, because they do kind of run that outside linebacker, like 3 down linemen with 2 outside linebacker scheme. That's there. Fair. I like the player for the most part. He was a much better run defender last year, but then he lost some weight to be more athletic and more effective in the passing game, and so he's lost a little bit of his power in the run game. But all in all, like still a really good player there. And I think they could definitely utilize him in a good way in Arizona. I like the Tyleik Williams pick. They need some meat in the middle there, and I really like Tyleik Williams. My favorite part about him, though, dude has the biggest arms I've ever seen. Like his arms are like, they look like legs. Yeah. And if you like the picture that I'm referring to, if you go to the Senior Bowl on Twitter and you like look at his picture that they use for like his Senior Bowl invite acceptance, dude's arms are like half the screen. Like it's just insane, like how big his arms are. And so I think for me, that's just a hilarious and awesome like little factoid about him. But then also, like, as a player, he is very effective. You said he dominates one-on-ones with interior offensive linemen, even double teams sometimes. Like he just doesn't get moved very easily. And so like he's definitely going to have to be an interior defender where like you're going to have to either wall him off or like get just some incredible push to move him off the ball. And so I think him, then you have Micah Parsons, and then if DeMarcus Lawrence can come back healthy, I believe he's actually a free agent but Andy's also like 32. But I like that fit there. And all in all, like
he is. Yeah.
This is a very sorry, but this is like a very different draft, as like they all should be. But I think this just shows, and we keep saying this, the variety in this class of like Derek Harmon could go in the 3rd round. He could also go 16th.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's going to be fun to come like the night before the draft and we go back and look through all of our crazy picks and guys that have been risers or fallers here. So especially too, speaking of fallers, he hasn't really fallen technically really that much, but kind of compared to his rank and like average draft position. This is where I feel like for the Seahawks, getting Calvin Banks, just increasing that offensive line. Banks, he's been a tackle at Texas, but I wouldn't be surprised like if he maybe has the opportunity to kick in the guard a little bit, or maybe they can figure something out just to try and improve that offensive line. I think they've got something at Charles Cross at left tackle. Everything else I think can be up for grabs. Maybe Calvin Banks kicks over to right tackle. Let me double check. Is Abraham Lucas? He's not a Abraham Lucas is not a free agent this year, but so maybe they can figure something out, or maybe they can still develop him as well in Seattle just to try and establish a little bit better offensive line presence. This is here now, Tampa Bay. I honestly thought a lot outside of the Seattle pick. I thought a lot about like where could I take probably like one of my favorite corners I think in the draft coming up, and he's been playing, had a great game against Clemson, had a great game in the SEC championship. I think he's going to keep on having just great performance here in college football playoff. But Jahdae Barron here going to Tampa Bay, they desperately need cornerback help, especially too now after they lost to the Cowboys. And it was just, I know they have CeeDee Lamb, but like Cooper Rush was kind of picking apart that Tampa Bay defense. And Cooper Rush is an above average backup in the league, yes, but also too, he's still Cooper Rush. Like if he's picking apart your defense, that's not entirely a recipe for success. I think for teams in the NFL. So Tampa Bay going to go with the cornerback here. I think it makes the most sense to me. Here with Atlanta, obviously, if you're still with us here, one, thank you. But two, you can probably see my background and who my team is, who I like to root for. So with Atlanta, everybody and their mother is picking defensive line, and it absolutely makes sense. Totally get that. But there's also some other deficiencies on this team that I think we need to address. I think offensive line could be an area potentially where they go if they fall in love with a guy, especially now, too, that we have Michael Penix Jr. is now going to be the guy moving forward, especially at least going into 2025. It seems like for sure. Do we trust Caleb McGarry? And so I think that's a legitimate question. That's not the route I'm going to go here. Another area I think that we need to help out Michael Penix a lot is going to be in our playmakers. Bijan Robinson is a stud. I think he's going to be one of the better running backs in the league if he's not already one of the best. Drake London's legit. He's a different kind of receiver, but he's big. He's physical. And I think he can be a guy that he can rely on a lot. But we need that other kind of like skill, like just athletic freak or something like that. Freak might be not the best word for Luther Burden, but I think you put Luther Burden in this offense with Michael Penix throwing the ball. He's going to be the Zach Robinson offensive scheming. I think we could utilize him really well. And it's at minimum, it's going to be an upgrade from Ray McLeod. I think McLeod, it's been a fun story for the Falcons with this opportunity that he's had. But I think also it's pretty clear, especially too, if you go look at Michael Penix's first throw as a starter in the first game that he's starting was a Ray McLeod, and he dropped it. I think that's just kind of, I think Luther Burden is just an improvement there at minimum in that slot position, but also a gadget guy I think that they can utilize around and can free things up for Drake London. If they keep Darnell Mooney does have the speed. I think that could still be an improvement in my opinion. But at minimum, though, I think that it's going to be another big improvement in the skill position player room. So curious to hear what Falcons fans' thoughts are on that. Another big thing, too, as well, just kind of final note on the Falcons here. They only have 4 picks. They traded away the 3rd-round pick for Matt Judon, and then they lost their 5th-round pick because of tampering with Kirk Cousins, which was totally worth it, if I say so myself. So I'm just joking. No, it wasn't. But anyways, this is a very serious trade back spot here, and I bet they can go and pick up some more draft capital because they're going to need some more draft capital. But since I'm not doing trades, end up staying put here. So Los Angeles Chargers, this one just made sense now. Jim Harbaugh, Michigan guy. He's got a lot of Michigan connections there. And so Colson Loveland, Justin Herbert needs some more weapons, and Colson Loveland, I think, is probably the best pure tight end. And I think Jim Harbaugh is going to just want to bring him in. He's been working with him for the last couple of years, knows how good he is. Tyler Warren is another potential option there, but I think Colson Loveland is just going to be the overall better tight end here. Last pick here before I want to throw back to you on these last couple of picks.
Yeah.
Houston Texans really struggling on the interior offensive line. So I'm going to mix it up here a little bit. A lot of people have been going Tyler Booker. Makes absolute sense. I think one of the biggest issues for them has been right guard. And so just to talk about a guy who has been playing right guard his entire career at college at Georgia, Tate Rutledge. Going to be very curious to see how he does overall in some of the testing as well. He's been right guard his entire career at Georgia outside of, I think, 1 or 2 snaps. And so I think he's going to be a guy that could potentially come in here. He's got a good run blocking grade, good pass blocking grade as well. Could be Tyler Booker, but maybe just another guy I think that we're talking about here. Going to be fun to watch him go up against this Notre Dame defense as well, especially too with a backup quarterback. Going to really see how effective he can be. I think he's just going to be a much more improved and consistent guard for this Texans team.
Yeah, and he's been a focal point for this offensive line for Georgia for a while. I think this would be a little bit of a reach, but I think once you kind of break things down at this point in the draft, I think you're drafting high floor players that may have a limited ceiling, or you're drafting high floor or high ceiling players that have a really low floor. And for the other interior offensive lineman that I thought that you were going to go with would be potentially Wyatt Milam, because I think he's going to kick into guard. That would be another option there. But to get a guy that's done it for a while, I think it is valuable. And in the past few picks, I've liked Calvin Banks makes sense. He can maybe kick over to right tackle, but he can definitely play guard for you. That's where I think he'll be best at the NFL. Jahdae Barron, I like his versatility. He was a slot corner, a safety, and now this past season he's been playing outside corner, and he's done all at a pretty high level. And so I think that's a really good fit there for a team that needs a lot of different pieces. Luther Burden to the Falcons makes sense. I think him and Drake London complement each other very well. Colson Loveland, very good there. I don't know if I would necessarily call him a traditional tight end or true tight end, but it reminds me a little bit of a Noah Fant coming out of college, where it's he's going to be primarily a receiver. You're not going to line him up in line. But I think that would be a good fit. Him and Justin Herbert. Him and Justin Herbert would be a really good combo for a long time.
Yeah. I just think that Justin Herbert needs that other kind of explosive weapon, and I think Jim Harbaugh, have coaching him for several years, he knows how effective he can be. And I think one thing too, you go look at Colson Loveland, and I'm not the first guy to say this in the mock draft sphere, but I think it's just a good point. People are going to look at Colson Loveland's stats and be like, oh, well, he had a down year this year. J.J. McCarthy left, this great Michigan team left. He was the only real guy, him, Mason Graham, and Kenneth Grant. And I guess Will Johnson, but all those guys are defensive guys. He was the only thing offensively good about this Michigan team this year. You know, and so his stats suffer from that because teams could game plan around him. So I still think he's the best. Tyler Warren could potentially be a good option, but that's going to be an interesting kind of see where Tyler Warren goes as well. But those two guys I think are vying for top tight end spot. Gunnar Helm from Texas is also a good option as well. So picking things back up here, I thought a lot about where the Denver Broncos could go here. Receiver, you have Emeka Egbuka there. A guy that's rising up a little bit for me, Savion Williams from TCU, Jack Beck from TCU also. Both those guys I think would be very unique in a Sean Payton system as well. You could also maybe go defensive side of the ball, just trying to get better players. They already have a lot of really good players there to begin with, so where would they want to improve on? And I thought long about it, and it's what's a position in a player where it's it's good, but there's an impact player who I think they could come in and work really well in the Sean Payton system. And I was looking at their free agents. Javonte Williams is going to be a free agent, and there was another running back here. I thought there was one more. Well, so Javonte Williams is going to be a free agent. They drafted Audric Estime last year, and Javonte Williams only has, I think, 450 yards rushing on the season. And in general, too, the Broncos team only has 1,600 yards on the season as a whole, averaging just 108 on the season, which is not that great overall, 19th. I think you go and get Amari Hampton. Him and Audric Estime can still kind of carry carry snap or split snaps, but I think Hampton can eventually go and be that guy. You're a Georgia Tech fan, so you've seen Amari Hampton play multiple times throughout his college career. Dude is a stud. I mean, dude is a freaking bowling ball. And he's at 1,600 rushing yards this year. He's had, I think, 500 receiving yards on the season. If Ashton Genty wasn't having the season he's having, we'd be talking about Amari Hampton, how great of a running back he is. And so I think you put him in the Sean Payton system. You have Bo Nix at quarterback there, how efficient this offense can be. Offensive line has actually been playing well for Denver. I think this guy could be a stud in Denver in the system here. And Andre Estimate's got some talent as well. I think that could be an interesting 1-2 combo for Denver. So we'll come back to that here in a second. Los Angeles Rams. I end up going with Benjamin Morrison here. Still a lot of questions on if he'll declare or if he'll come back. But to me, the Rams just need secondary. They don't want to go secondary. There are some good tackle options as well. Just keep improving that offensive line, and could potentially go somewhere else in the front seven. There's just not a real good linebacker here in this position. Maybe if Jalen Walker falls, and this is what's, as we've mentioned already, unique about this draft. I think Jalen Walker would be interesting with his overall versatility, and he's technically classified as a linebacker, but that's whatever. So, but here end up going with Benjamin Morrison. Maybe took a little cop out there, but kind of curious to see what the Rams think of going secondary there. Washington Commanders. Really, I think any edge would do here as well. We've talked about how great the defensive interior is for Washington. Got Joseph Newton last year. They have Daron Payne, who is great. Jonathan Allen is great, but he's unfortunately been out for most of the season with a torn pec as well. They do still need to get better edge rushers in general. So in the past, I've gone Michael Williams, and I've also gone did I go James Prince Jr.? I've gone Michael Williams, and I think I've gone Michael Williams twice. So I decided not to go Michael Williams, but I stuck it in with the SEC, and I'm going to pronounce this name correctly. But from Ole Miss, Princely Uman Mielen.
Uman Mielen. Uman Mielen.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. Uman
Mielen. That's still so much better than the first time.
If you're an avid Tracy Take fan, you know how horrible I am with pronunciating. I can't even say it. So, but
let's just say Tyler looked at Malachi Starks' name and said Malik. I'm
a big fan of Key and Peele,
Yeah.
A-Rod. So, yeah. But anyways, either way, though, I think he's been a great guy at Ole Miss. You go look, he's got the numbers. I think he's a stud. But once again, the two, I think Michael Williams is a stud. I think James Pierce Jr. is a stud. They can go with any edge rusher in this class. If you don't like Princely, then insert the edge rusher that you like that's still available. Sherman Stewart, I think, would be interesting. Imagine how thick that defensive line would
Stewart.
be. What did I say Sherman?
Yeah.
This is epic. This is perfect. And before you guys start typing, I did have a lisp growing up. I couldn't say my R's. So already pronunciating is tough for me in general. And I majored in rhetoric. Which is even also funny as well. But once again, we're talking too much about my faults here. But so Commanders, they're going edge rusher. No matter what their name is or how you pronounce it, I think they're going to go edge rusher.
Okay.
Picking up here at the Steelers. So they have Joey Porter Jr., who has been doing well. They have Minka Fitzpatrick as a safety there. And other than that, I think there's some good talent still, but I think they can do better. And I'm realizing this is going to be another name. I don't think I'm going to butcher it, but Siobhan Rebel, cornerback out of ECU, I nailed it. Perfect. He's going to do so great at Pittsburgh now. I just think they need to increase the talent on the cornerback room. They have Cam Sutton, but he's been on IR for a majority of the year. He's also going to be a free agent as well. So interesting how they kind of handle that cornerback room. I feel like that's a route that they could go. That being said, though, fun fact, as long as we've been doing the Tracy Take, which is going back to, I think, COVID, like the first COVID draft.
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah. So, so that was the second year. So, Pittsburgh has always gone offense in the first round. So that's what's going to be interesting if they decide to go defensively here in the 2025 draft.
Mm-hmm. And I like that pick. It's really unfortunate he's not going to have a pre-draft process because he tore his ACL in like late August. But I think that's a good pick there. I think you get him and Joey Porter Jr. together. That's a big physical and athletic cornerback room. And then you still have Minkah Fitzpatrick on the back end. It really allowed them to be aggressive in that front seven. And then I like the Uman Mielen pick. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite like value edge rushers. Like Abdul Carter and Nick Scorton are at the top of my list, and they'll probably go top 10. But like if you're sitting at the back of the first or like the beginning of the second, I really like Uman Mielen, Kyle Kennard, Donovan Ezeraku. James Pierce Jr. is like kind of in between there, like somewhere in that range, depending on how much you value athleticism at the edge position. And so like I like that pick. I personally am not drafting Benjamin Morrison until he declares. He missed almost the entire season with a hip injury, so like it would be best for him to go back to college and play another season and then be a top 10, top 5 pick in next year's class. And then Amarian Hampton, I like the player. I think it's an interesting fit. You could sell me on it if they don't want to give Audric Estime like a full workload, and they want to kind of have him be more of a spellback. But I think they're actually progressing right now into having him be more of like a every down back for them.
Yeah, and I thought about that too. But there's also, you look at a lot of teams now. A lot of teams are going into that 2-back set, and so
I agree.
Hampton.
And he's definitely worth the pick, in my opinion, like in terms of the player. It's just the fit that I don't.
Well, but that was my thing too. I was looking at that. I was looking at the board, and it's like, I mean, you can make a case for a lot of guys, but I just look at it. I think Amarian Hampton would just excel behind this, like in this offense with how efficient they've been. So, so getting back to it though, Baltimore Ravens are on the clock. His is another guy too that got hurt but declared. And so I'm going to be curious on your thoughts here as well. Baltimore Ravens have one of the worst pass defenses in the league. And it's ironic, too, because they have one of the best run defenses in the league with that defensive line in that front seven. And so I ended up going, guy just declared out of Penn State, Kevin Winston Jr., safety. They need secondary help, as I mentioned. Brandon Stevenson and Adarius Washington are going to be free agents, if my information is correct here as well. They haven't been doing too great just in general. So I take that back. I think Brandon Stevenson has been grading that well, but not Adarius Washington. Well, let me double check that here real quick. I should have written that down.
For this pick specifically, this is a guy I haven't really even gotten to in my draft prep, just because he's missed. Like he got hurt in like the first game, or the second game, and so he's missed almost the whole season. But he still came out and declared. So I need to go back and watch him from 2023. But from what I've heard, he's just a really talented and athletic player. On that Penn, like Penn State players usually are.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at the stats here now, and if you go back and look at his stats from last year, he's a very versatile guy. So in 2023, he played 81 snaps in the slot, 132 in the box, 276 deep. He did play 8 at corner. And so to me, when I was looking at that, this is a guy too, if you look at what John Harbaugh wants to do, what Baltimore wants to do in their defense, they do have Kyle Hamilton. I think to have another guy like that as well that can kind of move around and just can be super effective in defensive scheming, I think can just help out that pass defense as a whole, because this pass rush is going to be super effective. Defensive front is going to be really effective for Baltimore, and to be able to mix up some coverages and some signals in the secondary, I think can help out with disguising what this Ravens team wants to do. So that's kind of why I went with Kevin Winston. But I think he's a guy that could keep up, could rise up some draft boards. So I wanted to bring his name up to light here, especially now too, since he's declared. So, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. As you said, he got hurt. Oh, I think I said that, but he got hurt. So we need to go back to looking at where's my thing here? Here it is. So back to the draft. Green Bay Packers. Once again, kind of disclaimer as well. We are doing this during the Monday Night Football game, but let me update the score, and it is still 24-0 Green Bay. So I don't feel like they're going to lose this game, and they should still be picking here the 27th pick. And with that, though, I think they could go a lot of different routes, but I think that they need to increase on their talent in the secondary room. Corey Ballantyne is going to be a free agent. Also, Eric Stokes.
Yeah.
Eric Stokes as well. And I thought there was one other guy. But just in general, though, their secondary is a little bit weaker. I feel like they have a good front seven. They can maybe address that there. But when looking at kind of their defense coordinator and his philosophy as well, one of the things that he read is he wants to be aggressive on the defensive side of the ball. And when watching Trey Amos, that's kind of what I got the feeling of. It's a super aggressive, athletic player. And I think he would fit well kind of in this scheming if that's what they would want to go with. He's had a good season at Ole Miss. From the film I watched, there is press coverage in there. So I think he can be aggressive, and I think he can be high flying, loves to hit hard. I think he needs to work on just wrapping up on his tackling. Sometimes he just uses his body, hopefully to hit them hard enough to knock them down. And he runs really fast, and he's kind of big. So normally that works, but just one of those things. But I think he would fit well in this Green Bay Packers system. And let's wrap up here, just the last couple of picks here before I send it back your way. Philadelphia Eagles, shocker here. They need an edge rusher, and look at that. There is a Georgia edge rusher on the board, Micah Williams. I think pair him up with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. And then also, too, I think Nolan Smith is also there as well. Vast majority of UGA players. And so just have the Bulldogs defensive line from several championships ago. Buffalo Bills, Walter Nolan here coming off the board, defensive tackle, very versatile defensive tackle. I think he'd go well with Gregory Rousseau in the defensive front that they'd have there. Keep trying to provide some pressure up the middle. And there's, I believe, too, as well, I thought there was a couple of defensive linemen. Austin Johnson is going to be a free agent. Dwayne Smoot's going to be a free agent. Casey Tohill, Quentin Jefferson. So there are guys on the defensive line that are going to be free agents. So I think this could be a potential route that they go. Also, a potential trade back spot. Bills said they did it last year, so maybe they want to do it here again, get some more draft capital. So Minnesota Vikings, this is a guy, Ryan, I was telling you about this before we went live, but a guy I'm excited to talk about because I feel confident now like that people need to know his name. Obviously, as you can see here, I'm a Falcons fan. College football-wise, I don't brag about this a lot just because they've never been good until this year, until Kurt Cignetti came in. But I'm actually an Indiana Hoosier fan. I think maybe I'm typically just really like bad football, which is why I'm both a Falcons and Hoosiers fan. But this year, Hoosiers are actually pretty good. One of the main reasons why they have been successful, and you already know who I'm going to go and talk about, not him. He's the one that caused actually the long run, defensive tackle. This CJ West has been an absolute stud up the middle. Even if you look at that Notre Dame game, everybody's going to remember that 98-yard Jeremiah Love touchdown run. Like, it makes sense. It kind of set the tone for the game. You go look at the rest of the game, though. Jeremiah Love didn't have, I think, more than 10 rushing yards for the rest of that game. As a whole, Notre Dame, this great offensive rushing team, had less than 100 yards outside of that run. And a lot of that is from CJ West. I know that he's ranking him here at 185. I think this is going to be a guy that can rise up draft boards. He's 6'3", 315, great run blocker, has several sacks on the season as well, and has good pass rushing grade. I think he can be super effective in this Brian Flores defense. He's still the defensive coordinator there. And I think this can be a guy that they can go and start to maybe kind of build around. Maybe I'm crazy. Well, I definitely am crazy. But for picking an Indiana player in the first round, and there's a lot of other guys in front of him, but I think when we go to Senior Bowl and we see him go up against some of this other top talent, I think we're going to see how dominant this guy can be because he has.
Was he invited to the Senior Bowl?
Huh?
Was he invited to the Senior Bowl?
Pretty sure he's a senior.
Yeah, but you have to be invited. I actually don't know if he's invited to the Senior Bowl or not.
I thought so. I'll have to go back and double check because I thought I remember it when they played Ohio State. It'd be like Senior Bowl matchup: CJ West versus Donovan Jackson. So I could be wrong though. And so we'll check that here in a second.
Yeah, he is invited. He is.
He is? Perfect.
Yeah.
So we're going to be able to watch him at the Senior Bowl, and I think a lot of you guys are going to be impressed. And I think at Minnesota, you guys have one of the top rushing defenses. I think one of the things about that is because of how aggressive you are. I think CJ West could allow you to maybe have that same production while dropping one or two guys back into coverage maybe, or still just being just as aggressive, and this guy could be really effective. So wrapping things up here, 2 offensive linemen coming off the board. Wyatt Milam for the Lions. Versatile offensive lineman, can maybe kick in the guard. Kevin Zeitler is going to be a free agent. Maybe they want to get a little bit more versatility on that offensive line. Also, too, Dan Skipper, he might designate himself as a wide receiver after his amazing receiving performance as he got a touchdown as well for the team. That's just a joke, Ryan. I was hoping you were laughing at that. Lions fans, they're going to laugh at that if you're still watching this video, which we appreciate. Kansas City Chiefs, last one here, makes the most sense. Ariante Arceray, your guy, Ryan, you really like him. Everybody knows how poor the Chiefs' left tackle position has been this year. You go get Ariante Ursery, a guy that you can develop or maybe even start day one at left tackle. So that's my draft. It was really fun. I was determined to get an Indiana player in my draft, and I would love to get some more in there. I think it's going to be fun. But we've kind of been going back and forth, but a lot of fun just doing these drafts. Last year was fun too because like this player's great, this player's great, this player's great. This one's way more fun to me because it's like just a giant puzzle that you don't know.
Yeah,
and
it is like it's kind of whoever suits your fancy there, especially like as you get to the back end of that first round. Like,
yeah,
I think CJ West is a reach. I think he could potentially work his way up into like a day two conversation. But like him at the end of the first round, just to talk about him as a player, I mean, he had some dominant reps against NFL caliber interior offensive linemen really all season. I think when you go and look at I know Indiana, the strength of schedule, whatnot, but like he played really well against Ohio State. He played really well against Notre Dame, which were their two toughest games by far. And he's just a really good player. The guy before him, so I have so many mixed feelings about Walter Nolan. Everyone that I hear hypes up Walter Nolan to me. I watch him and it's like I don't really see what everyone's talking about. The thing that I do see is he is really strong at the point of attack, like, and he holds up well in the run game. But everyone says like he's this like super explosive pass rushing defensive tackle, and it's like he had 3 sacks on the season. They all came against South Carolina. In two, one of them was a good rep. 2 of them, the guy literally like ran right into him. And so like Walter Nolan is way down like for me, but I hear people hype up Walter Nolan all the time. And so like I maybe I'm just missing the boat on that one, but that's just kind of my thoughts there. I am a Trey Amos fan. I wish he had shown better long speed, but he's just so hard to get away from in man coverage because they do kind of run him in that like bump go. And he's so long that it's really hard for teams or for wide receivers to get around him. Micah Williams is a first round pick off of tools alone. Wyatt Milam and Ariante Ursery are 2 of my favorite offensive linemen in this class. I just like the tools that Wyatt Milam has and the experience that he has as a 4-year starter. And then Ursery, I like just the physical athlete that he is. He's not the most polished tackle at the moment, but I think in a class like this, I think you're willing to bet on the 6'6", 330 and can move like that aspect of his game. And when he gets his hands on you, the reps are over because he's just so strong. The biggest thing is going to be, can speed threaten his corner as a tackle? But all in all, like I think this is just a fun mock draft. It's fun doing these and kind of like seeing where you are on prospects and where I am on prospects, because like there are a few that are close and a few that are not close. And so like it's interesting how different these drafts are. And last year was a lot of fun because we got to evaluate like 9 different quarterbacks and all this stuff. But like this year is going to be fun because it's going to be so different. We're going to be so far apart from each other just because I think a lot of these players are in the same realm.
Yeah. Well, it's I forgot which player it was. The Washington Commanders one, Princely. I won't pronounce his last name, but is like if the Commanders don't like Princely, but they like Michael Williams, they'll take him. They'll take James Pierce Jr.
Kyle Kennard, Donovan Ezraku,
like Lamar Stewart.
Sherman.
and so it's just, to me, when I watch a lot of these films, like there's Mike Green from Marshall, who is like
that's another
your
one.
Matt Judon, really skinny, super explosive edge rusher, and then not really skinny relative to like the other guys.
He's a true outside linebacker, yeah.
Yeah, but then there, like you go to Shamar Stewart or Nick Scott, who are the 6'5", 285, 290 edge rushers, who are like maybe your more traditional defensive ends of what you think of in like a 4-3. There's like those extremes, and I feel like everybody else in the middle, in my eyes, are kind of similar. Like Michael Williams, Abdul Carter. And Abdul Carter, skill-wise, I think is like the next level.
Yeah.
But size-wise, though, all those guys are kind of in that same body shape, that same realm, So to me, it's just going to be how these teams scout them and like which ones they feel are just going to be better on their board. For some reason, like Howie Roseman and Philadelphia Eagles are probably going to like Michael Williams if he is there over James Pierce Jr. You know, well, I said not probably just because of the Georgia connection, but still, that's just something that they found in those guys. And well, shoot, it's worked. Like their scouting's worked. So it's going to be a lot of fun over these next 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not glad that the regular season is coming to a close because I love watching football every week and whatnot. But I'm very excited to be like moving forward into this draft process because I think it's going to be a lot of fun this year. So let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this mock draft here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, go ahead and leave a comment on what you think of this mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? And other than that, we will see you guys next time.